Alrighty, so today, as of recording, is April the 8th, 2023, which I'm going to forever associate and designate this as Owl House Finale Day. And this is a big day for a lot of people because the Owl House is finishing up today, as I'm recording this. This may come out like a day after the finale, so like, I'm probably gonna be live tweeting and crying into Twitter for the remainder of today after this is all done. But with that being said, Owl House is finishing up, so I guess this is like the closest thing that I'm gonna be doing to actually like finalizing my thoughts on like Owl House as a whole. But like, and the main reason why I feel like myself and others are really excited for this is because of the fact that Owl House has been one of those shows that has been very prominent in the popular zeitgeist of like everything relating to everything with media, to be honest, like especially queer media, because for the longest period of time, or at least for like the last 3 years at least, it's been the show for like queer kids of this generation specifically, and it's basically been a guiding light to a lot of people to like figuring stuff out. And the fact that it came out from Disney of all places is astounding. And it's got some really good themes of dealing with trauma as well, and as well as that, it's also got some really neat character arcs as well as one of the most wholesome queer relationships I think I've ever seen on modern animated shows, or at least like modern media in general, to be honest. And like, whenever I think about that, I'm just like, I'm really happy that a show like this got to be made. But the more I thought about it, and the more that I went back to watch it in preparation for this finale episode, the more that I got to thinking to myself, haven't we been here before? Like, I know, absolute coldest take possible, but yeah, I'm just gonna say it. Steven Universe has basically done this as well, but for a generation before the current one that's coming out. In fact, it's officially 10 years old as of this year. And oh my god, Steven Universe is 10 years old. I don't know how to feel about that. I genuinely do not know how to feel about that. I was about to exit high school when Steven Universe came out. Oh my fucking god. Alright, had my little breakdown there for a second, but genuinely speaking here, I'm really excited for this, but genuinely speaking here, Steven Universe finishing up just around about the same time that Owl House was debuting, it feels like it's not a coincidence. It feels like this was planned. And massive tinfoil hat here moment here, but I feel like with everything we've seen up until this point, and especially given the popular like zeitgeist surrounding Owl House, and especially given the reception it's gotten in the intervening time between its debut and now, I feel like I'm prepared to finally make my thesis statement on why the Owl House is the new Steven Universe. Now let me explain. Now, I want to make this perfectly clear that my thoughts and feelings on this are going to be semi-unscripted, and by semi-unscripted I mean I'm literally reading off some notes that I put down a while ago pretty much on my thoughts about this, because I've recently been re-watching Steven Universe for a different video down the line, but the more I re-watched episodes of Owl House and Steven Universe back to back, it's sort of when I realized these connections a lot more. So this may be really unscripted, this is going to be like a nightmare for future Chloe to get to editing, but I want to try and make my points as clear as possible with this. And so without any further ado, let's get to it. Alrighty, huge one. This is the one that I feel like a lot of people might actually have the most common ground with it on, but both of these series have major queer coding behind them, which is pretty obvious given what we've already discussed here. And the fact that it's basically been potential inspiration for LGBTQI youth for both the 2010s and 2020s consecutively, it's amazing. Like, for my own personal story, Steven Universe is part of the reason why I was able to, like, starting to, like, be more confident and more able to really sort of go down that route with that sort of thing. I'm gonna talk about this more when I do an in transition video on Steven Universe, which Aw crap, I just spoiled I'm doing an in transition video on Steven Universe, aren't I? You can expect that down the line at least. But with that being said, the queer coding in Steven Universe was amazing to watch in the 2010s because, like, we had not actually had such queer coding in a series since, like, I want to say since Kurosami in, like, Hora, which, yeah, that's a bit of a sticky topic, I know, but, like, that was the first time we ever got, like, any sort of queer coding in any sort of media, and the fact that they came around, like, within the first year of Steven Universe, that is wild to think about. But the fact is that Steven Universe actually sort of perfected that sort of thing, and the way that it managed to, like, not make it too, like, pandering, I guess, is the best way that I can put that. Like, it was that perfect balance of, like, it's not pandering, but it's also not feeling like it's not really getting it. It was like that perfect balance. It was like, the best way that I can put it is that it was the best sort of representation I feel like any sort of queer relationships or queer people in general could have really gotten for the period of time. And not only that, but Owl House, like, as the internet and myself will probably go on for days about, has also been able to pull that off really well for, like, the Disney generation as well. And the fact that they even allowed Lumini to even happen to begin with, that's awesome. And also, Rain as a non-binary character. Like, genuinely, 100% confirmed non-binary. That is amazing, and I'm glad that we actually have, like, non-binary representation in media these days. Unfortunately, the fact that Disney was able to do it is a double-edged sword, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but yeah, it's been good that both Cartoon Network and Disney have been able to get these sorts of relationships and these sorts of dynamics down really well, and I love it. But it's actually not just the LGBT coding in the shows as well, because both Steven Universe and Owl House have been able to bridge the gap for neurodivergent characters as well. Like, we already know, like, Luz is obviously neurodivergent. In fact, they made that an entire character arc, and Data Terrace even confirmed it well before it was made into a character arc for Luz in Season 2B and for the majority of Season 3 up until this point. And to be honest, having that sort of, like, coding in your characters like that, well, good job. It's a good job. Words are hard right now, but I'm just saying, seeing that in a cartoon like this today, it's awesome. However, I do need to have to point out that one of my favorite characters in Steven Universe, funnily enough, is actually got some neurodivergent coding in there. Because Peridot is also one of those characters that had major neurodivergent coding in there. And having them just have that sort of, like, balance between the two as well. Like, you could I could tell Luz was sort of neurodivergent even before it was confirmed both in show and by Data Terrace, because, like, I mean, you look at, like, most of the stuff that she gets, like, really obsessive over, and you tell me that that is not someone who has hyperfixations about so much stuff, including witches. Like, the Azura books, I feel that sort of hyperfixation level on every part of my body. Because, like, I've been there, I know how that feels, and it's like, it's wild. But also at the same time, like, there's so much more that I could discuss with, like, stuff like Peridot as well. Like, there's I'm gonna show you an entire list of things that I found out just from my rewatches of Steven Universe that feel like Peridot has some major neurodivergent coding in there because of it. Yeah, I could keep on going. But not only that, I guess, but you can also sort of pinpoint some general kids dealing with trauma a lot in this show. Like, Steven and Connie in Steven Universe, they deal with a lot of shit in this show, and it's a lot, without going into too much detail about it for anybody that hasn't watched Steven Universe in this. But one thing I will definitely state for those that have watched Steven Universe is that it really does feel like Luz is, in Season 3 especially, is channeling late stage Steven in the show as of recently as well. Cause, like, she went from this clip,
"Yes, this mama is ready for trauma,"
to basically just being one of the most traumatized people in this show, and I do not know how to feel about that, but all I'm saying is that that feels like something that was very much intentional, because oh god, you really were not ready for that, were you, kid? But at the same time, it mirrors a lot of what happens to Steven in future, cause poor old Steven really did deal with a lot of that stuff, didn't he? And his whole arc with his trauma literally manifesting and his powers like going haywire with his emotions, that, in my personal opinion, feels like such like the most equal point between the two. Bar one other point. See, throughout season 3, we've actually gotten a lot of hints of Luz and her mum's relationship being a lot more complex than it was in season 1. And the best way that I can put it is that generational trauma is a bitch. And realistically, it's shown that it's passed down from her mum to Luz, and possibly has been going on for like years and years and years, and like, it's worse because, well, we see in the show that she deals with so much of this in the form of just like having to deal with these expectations of like Luz like obviously having all this neurodivergency issues and her not being able to deal with it as a mum because she's just like, oh, she should be doing so much better at this. And I'm just like, But not only that, it perfectly mirrors sort of the relationship that Steven and Rose Quartz have in Steven Universe, where Steven literally actually, for realsies, like non-hyperbole here, inherits his mom's trauma and generational like sins in a way because, well, literal reincarnation of your mum, and that whole realization is just like he has to deal with the fact that everyone around him is also dealing with trauma at the exact same time because of the fact that they just see his mum, as in they constantly see Rose Quartz in every stretch of the imagination in the process. And it's like, kid can't catch a break, and it goes to the absolute extreme at the end with this clip.
She's gone!
Like, you tell me that it's not a kid that is dealing with so much trauma by the end of it. It's literally just generational trauma at this point. But I guess in general, like, the kids from Owl House, like, the entire, like, gang, like, Luz's entire gang is literally dealing with so much trauma because no teenager should be able to have to go through all that shit. And the fact that there have now been 2 shows that have been dealt with that sort of thing, again, is a lot. But I'd personally argue that it's actually really neat that both of these shows have had these sort of coincidings, which is kind of ironic given the fact that, for better or for worse, both of these shows are kind of screwed by their respective networks. Like, yeah, Rebecca Sugar got screwed over very hard over that fact because she was basically told, you gotta tone down the gayness, otherwise we're canceling you. And instead, they decided to just go ahead and throw so much more gayness into the mix. They literally had a lesbian wedding for the Gems in one of the final episodes of season 5. And I just think that's really rad that Rebecca Sugar just gave the middle finger right to Cartoon Network executives, who would later turn around and basically say, oh yeah, we support this by having fucking Bubbleweed be in their Pride Month stuff. And I'm just sitting here like, you can't do that. You can't do that to Rebecca Sugar and then just say, oh, we actually support the gays. But that's a video for another time. I'm gonna focus on this. But we all know that story behind Rebecca Sugar, but I feel like Dana Terrace getting screwed over by Disney was a lot worse. Because if you don't know the story by now, Dana Terrace was basically set to have like 3 full seasons of Owl House, and then within the middle of season 2A's production, it was announced that season 3 was going to be cut down to 3 specials. Now, everyone, including myself, was kind of bummed by that, but then when the topic of what actually was the cause behind Owl House getting that shaft came out, that's when I realized that this is basically just Steven Universe all over again, when the reality here is that it's probably a lot worse, because at least Steven Universe got to have its actual full season fully fleshed out, Meanwhile, Our House has only had 3 specials to wrap up everything from that finale in season 2, as well as give an actual ending to things. Like, I look at this and I think to myself, these specials could have been split off in like a full season at least, or at least like half a season. And it's a bit annoying that it's ended up this way, but if you ask me personally, Dana has done a pretty good job for what it's worth, and I feel like, yes, I am still very hyped, and I'm still really hoping that it really hits a home run at the end, but yeah, these specials have definitely not been the vibe that I was hoping for, or even like everyone else for Our House is really hoping for with this, but it still worked. But it's another example as to why the dichotomy between the two is so similar between Our House and Steven Universe, because of that one singular connection. And I feel like that, amongst everything else at this point, is the most crucial one, because they got screwed over by the network for deciding to have LGBTQI themes in it, and it's a bit depressing, to be honest. And it's even more depressing because this is queer media made by queer people. We all know by now that Rebecca Sugar is non-binary and basically was open and about it during the production of Steven Universe, especially by the end of it. But I really love the fact that Dana Terrace is bisexual and was even putting her own experiences of being bisexual into writing the Lumity storyline, because I feel like that makes the relationship and the whole bonding between Luz and Avony that much more real and that much more wholesome, to be honest. And I will fight anyone in the comments section stating that. Although I do have to say one thing about the ship name Lumity. Why are we not calling it Night? You literally have that right there. It's like, yeah, sure, it's literally just putting the 2 first names together, but you have Night right there, and it's like, you mean to tell me out of these 2, you didn't go for this one? Like, look, come on! Anyway, back on point, yeah, having actual queer media made by actual queer people is so rare, especially when it's being targeted towards kids, and I love the fact that it's actually been... And I love the fact that we've actually been able to get this not once, but twice in the last decade. So, you know what? I love this. And I love the fact that out of everything that we could have gotten for this, it's managed to go back to back. So like for a full decade from 2013 to 2023, this year, we have had 10 full years of queer media in the public consciousness that has been made by queer people. And for that, can't thank Rebecca Sugar and Dana Terrace enough for that. And I still just get really upset about the fact that we're still getting this sort of story where it's like, this sort of media is getting screwed over by the networks, and it sucks. And honestly, given the fact that Disney has no real intentions about really just doing anything with Our House after this, like this is it. There's no merchandising that's gonna be made out of this for all we know. Like, I doubt they're gonna make that many DVDs about this because they have Disney Plus. So, what is really gonna happen from here with queer media? It's hard to really tell, but like, I hope that queer media by queer creators still gets made after this, to be honest. But for what it's worth, I've been really dreading this day, if only for the fact that I don't know where we go from here after Our House. But for what it's worth, I'm glad that we've had like 2 separate series like this, like back to back, for what it's worth. And for all we know, we might actually have like some decent stuff on the horizon. I'm just very sort of like worried about what's gonna happen now, for what's gonna happen with queer media. And I guess I'm just rambling on about that sort of topic because that's sort of been in the back of my mind ever since the stuff about Our House getting shafted sort of came out. I love the fact that people have been sort of experiencing Our House the same way that I and many others experienced Steven Universe years ago. And in general, today is the end of an era, I guess, in terms of media. But for what it's worth, it's been a pretty good ride. So for what it's worth, Dana, thank you very much for making a show like this, and whatever ends up happening tonight, because I haven't watched it yet because I'm in Australia, so I have to wait for the YouTube link to go up. Whatever happens next, I hope it's a good episode, and I hope it goes out with a bang, because goddamn, this show deserves to go out with a bang. So if you've watched this and you want to share your thoughts about how my ideals on this sort of thing all work out, my loose thoughts on this, mind you, have all worked out, shoot it down in the comments. If you've watched the episode, you can go ahead and just tweet me your thoughts. I'm on Twitter. I've probably tweeted mine already. Go follow me there. I tweet a lot of different stuff as well. And yeah, thank you Dana Terrace, and thank you Owl House. Hopefully it's good, and for everyone else, catch you later.